Hey guys, this is Perkz, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel. I would like you guys to appreciate his YouTube channel, even though he talks sometimes so much that not even I can handle it. But most of the time it's pretty funny and entertaining.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is going to be Zven, formerly a long time ago known as Niels. And actually, that is where I want to start here, Zven, which is a lot of people will know, like, we got into Origen. I mean, to be fair, a lot of fans are quite new anyway, but they've heard you're in Origen, then you're in G2, then, you know, it's TSM, Cloud. They might know the rough. But what I'm always interested in is in League of Legends, it's not like my game, CSGO, where basically the way you would get to the top is you just go to tournaments, you play the same teams you want to be in, you beat them or you do well against them, and they just pick you up, right? Because you already came up in the era when LCS already existed and there's a challenger scene, but they're like, technically there was promotion back then, but even so, like, it's like there's only one or two spots. Like, you were one of the people who you have to get picked up into a top team. So one thing I'm almost certain I remember, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but even your first time, like, wasn't it true that before you even went to OG, there was like other teams you could have been on, like other big name squads, and you picked OG, right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, you are. So I had a tryout for SK before the spring split that they played, and it didn't go
the one
very
where
well.
they got forgiven, basically.
Yes. And I remember the tryout scrim. We were playing against either FNATIC or Elements. It was Reckless's team, so it must have been Elements.
Yeah, Elements, yeah.
Yeah, and it went horribly. Like, Freddy showed up like half an hour late, and he came with like some sort of breakfast, and he was like in Discord, and he woke up like a minute ago, and it was terrible. And then we scrimmed, and it didn't go so badly, like gameplay wise, but it was a disaster. And then Joe messaged me like the day after, like, "Hey, I'm gonna go with someone else," and then they went forgiven. And actually, in hindsight, I was really happy that happened, because like not even a month later, I had opportunities from both FNATIC and from Origen. Origen at the time, of course, just being XPK and mithy. They didn't have SOAS yet.
And they didn't have an LCS spot, which is key, right? That's why I was interested you chose them.
Yeah. I mean, I chose it mostly because even though FNATIC was way more professional, like Karn messaged me, and my brother had like a complete panic attack because he was a big CS fan. He was a really big Source fan, and so when Karn messaged me, he was like, "Holy fuck, this is real!" And then the FNATIC showed me like a template contract and the website and all these kind of things, and they were very professional with my mother, so they were very like, you know, good at convincing her to make it seem that this is actually real, not like some sort of joke or not scary in any way. So that was nice about FNATIC, that they were very professional compared to, you know, Origen being just a startup from a garage basically. But I chose Origen ultimately because I want to play with mithy, and I thought that going to Challenge Series could be good for me. I already played Challenge Series in the past with SK Prime, like the academy version of SK, I guess you can call it. And I thought that I could need it the time in Origen. And I just feel like the people in Origen I would mesh better with than FNATIC. Even though I played duo with Yellowstar a bit, it just didn't feel like, even though he was considered the best support in the year at the time, it just didn't feel right. So I was like, fuck it, I'll go with these guys.
I mean, the crazy thing about that, though, mate, is if you think about it, like, obviously the first split was the one where they had Steelbacks. As he said, Reckless was off in Elements, but he then got to come in for Summer, and they had the 18-0. So even though, look, I'm pretty sure you're happy with how that year went. Like, he got to the LCS, got to the finals, semis of Worlds. Like, have you ever thought what would happen if you had to join FNATIC? You might still be a FNATIC to this day. Who knows? Maybe you're there instead of Reckless.
Yeah, I mean, you have no idea. I mean, if they won with Steelback, I think they would have won with me as well. I think that's fair to say. And in Summer, I thought it was pretty clear that it was Reckless and I who were the best ADCs. You can argue different games, different days, but I think the outcome of the year would have been the same for FNATIC. But I still don't regret it at all. I still, you know, that final is still one of the best to this day, and I loved every second of it. And I don't regret the choice I made to join Origen in 15. We can discuss like what happens after the first year.
Sure.
But I have no regrets about joining Origen over FNATIC, even knowing the outcome. So
even though when you join a team like that, essentially everyone else there already has a reputation. They've all like had big accomplishments. They've been top players in their role. So you actually came in as like the rookie. I was watching back when I was doing a bit of research, like a Best of Origen 2015 video. It's basically a bloody Niels highlight, mate. Like, even though you've got all these legends, Xpeke, SOAS, like mithy, like half the clips is just you carrying all the team fights on like Jinx or Just Harder or whatever. What was Niels like in 2015? What style of play do you think you had?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really want to play any specific playstyle. It just happened at Worlds that the meta was very topside focused. And we had this discussion, I remember, about the Juggernauts. That was the like Fiora, Darius, like Gangplank, all these kind of Riven, these kind of shit champs top were super overpowered. And we sat down one day and we were like, I don't want to play these champs. So I said, and then he said he wanted to play like Malphite and Kennen and shit. And then Perkz was, he was declining, and we knew it, and he knew it, and he even admitted it during our Korean bootcamp. We were playing against BDD when he was a rookie.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, we were playing against CJ Entus. And he was playing as Seer versus Victor, I think it was. Classic matchup, of course. And he was losing both sides of it with like full tank runes. He was playing back in the old rune system. He was playing like full HP, full MR, and the old flask with 4 potions. We could wait in base and get a 4th potion. And he said he was having a hard time laning. He said to us, quote unquote, guys, I'm not sure if I'm too bad or if he's too good, but I can't win both sides of the matchup. So yeah, I'm not sure. So he started playing this kind of like, he actually reinvented like TP mid with like, so the double TP meta, and he was just playing like full tank basically, playing Anivia and Victor and just going full tank runes, and then it was impossible to win lane against him. So it kind of just came down to me having to carry, and my best champ at the time, Kalista, was a very OP champ in the meta. So it kind of just came naturally that we played around bot lane. So that's just how it happened. I had to just carry, and I think I did for the most part. But yeah, it wasn't like it just happened naturally that I became the carrier of our team, despite the meta of Worlds being very heavily topside focused, and almost every team at the tournament being topside focused, besides us and maybe EDG, who lost in quarters to FNATIC, I think, right? So yeah, I mean, it just happened, and it just kept going from there. But in summer and in spring, although we were in Challenge Series, we didn't play like that at all. It just happened at Worlds that it was needed to play that way.
Because another thing about when you were in this team that I always thought was interesting is if I interview any of the other people, they always basically tell me it's like Amazing and Mithy and Soaz or whatever are always arguing. Like Expector's like the chill guy, just sort of like, hey kids, come on, like calm down, we're just playing the game. And then at the time, even though now you're known as an incredibly vocal, bold figure who people, the joke is, we'll get to it later, you might even yourself have been benched for being too intense. But back then it sounds like you were just sat there, like you were just you were the new guy. You were just like, bloody hell, I think I'll just keep out of this shit. This is crazy. Like, what was it like to be a fly on the wall in that room?
Yeah, at first when I arrived in Origen, and we were in Tenerife actually at this time, playing Challenge Series from there, which in hindsight was a terrible decision because we were playing solo queue and like 70 ping. Even the Challenge Series realm was on a different server that we had higher ping, so we were actually just handicapping ourselves for no reason. But anyway, at first I was very quiet. I realized I didn't actually think about the name value of these people. I didn't really follow esports much in 14 or before that. I mean, I knew who won Worlds, right? I knew who people were. I knew Expector was a big deal from FNATIC, blah blah. But I didn't really like know how big of a deal these people actually were.
So you were just legitimately playing League for fun, basically. You weren't trying to be like pro.
Yeah, right. More or less. I had a no expectations kind of mindset, but hoping for the best kind of thing. That's why I thought the whole first year of my career was just that. And at first I wasn't shy, but I was just quiet. I was just seeing how things were, and the whole pro gaming experience was surreal. The whole 5 guys living in a gaming house, no manager, no coach, no nothing. Just 5 guys living in a massive fucking house, figuring out their life on their own, playing games all day, eating like some shit food that Perkz made. And that's it. It was fucking glorious. It was literally the dream. It was exactly how I pictured it would be. So I was
just pure, I'm guessing, right? Yeah. There was none of the nonsense, right?
Yeah, and I remember our first scrims we were playing against Rocket, Woolite, and must have been Vander.
Yeah.
And we were getting shit stomped. I remember it clearly. It was our first scrim in Spain, and we were getting absolutely shit stomped. And I remember thinking, "Whoa, what the fuck?" Not what I expected, right? Because we had the privilege that we had 4 prestigious players, so we could always scrim LEC or LCS, EU LCS back then. Yeah, so we didn't have to scrim Challenger Series teams or whatever back then, so we always had good scrims, and we were getting shit stomped for a while, and it was a good learning experience for me because mithy back then you didn't have a normal review. You just like after the game you just talk to someone like, hey, you fucked up this game, you lost your lane, blah blah. It was very like unorganized and structured, but it's how it was back then. So people were very like, I wouldn't say toxic, but very confrontational. Like, hey, why didn't you talk this game? Why didn't you do this game? Blah blah blah. You lost lane this game. You know, it was like environment that was, I wouldn't say harsh, but it would tough you up a bit, you know, to be in this kind of environment. So I think it was good for me.
Being as you were in a team with Mithy, right? And this, as we say, you're in the challenger scene at this point in time. And as I said earlier on, there's only a few teams can get in. You basically, if people don't know how promotion used to work back then, admittedly, this is the year where they made it like a bracket qualifier or whatever. But obviously, famously, it used to just be you got paired against one like bottom LCS team. And by the way, if they just had like veteran players or great players on LAN, it doesn't matter if you're better, you just lose. Well, here's the thing. Since you were with Mithy, mate, I'm sure he told you what it's like to be in the challenger scene. That was a nightmare the year he had before, where they legitimately were some of the best players in Europe in that NIB team, and then they would just go play that promotion match. And lose, the problem is, if you're bad on that day, or even just for an hour, you lose. Yeah, you don't get into the split, and you just feel locked out again. Like, were you nervous when you came to that qualifier? Because people will see Origin if they, it was obvious you were going to get in. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of people have a nightmare in those scenarios.
No, by that time, we played against Copenhagen Wolves, I think. I was not nervous at all. I knew it was going to be a fucking free win. Because this was back when the first match you played, so our system got changed this year to a new format where if you were the first team in Challenge Series, you got auto-promoted to LCS.
Oh, right. You didn't have to play someone, right? Even better.
Yeah, exactly. But second and third had to play against LCS, like you said, and that was the worst part of it. So I knew we had to beat Copenhagen Wolves, which was like a terrible team. I still remember their players, and we met them in the hotel the night before, and they had no jerseys, so they were wearing like old Riot Games merchandise on stage. I wonder if you can still find it online, but they were wearing like actual like Riot Games hoodies on stage, I think. And it was just so fucking glorious because of how scuffed it was in hindsight. But I knew that was free win. I had watched NIP versus, what's it, Rockhat they lost to?
Yeah.
The Polish guys, yeah. And I remember like thinking, wow. And Mithy was always talking about how fucking mad he was about that, and how he always blamed Nuke Duck for losing to fucking Kale mid. Yeah, it was a tough format. In hindsight, it's very terrible. But the one we played in, well, actually was not bad. The one where you auto promote if you're first in Challenge Series, I think that was good. So I knew it was free win because the team we're playing against, Challenge Series, Copenhagen Wolves, they were called Lowland Lions, I think, before, and they just weren't it. So by that time, I already knew we were gonna play LCS next summer. But the time where I was nervous was when we played against, I forgot what they're called. I
Millennium,
think they're called
maybe?
RG, I think they were called. We lost the first game of a best of 3 in one of our first series of Challenge Series. If we lost that series, we wouldn't have qualified to the actual Challenge Series at all. And the whole year would have been over. To think about the implications in hindsight is crazy. But I remember like I was in the bathroom between game 1 and 2, and we lost the first game, right? So second game would have been the last game we would play of that whole like fucking split. And I was thinking like, I actually went through thinking about, wow, I could have been joining FNATIC right now. I could have been winning LCS right now instead of still back. I actually went through this emotion, and I was looking at the mirror and thinking, whoa, holy fuck. I still remember that bathroom, that mirror, that whole thing. And then I went back in and we won. And I remember Perkz carried us and fucking said that we had like Nunu and shit in the game. It was a truly different time of the game. But I went through that emotion there, and then back. But then once we went to the finals and qualified to the LEC, EU LCS, I didn't have that problem anymore. I knew we were going to win, we're going to go to LCS, and we're going to go to Summer, and we'll see what happens there.
It's funny because when people are in your position, or Reckless is, he had a similar thing. I mean, he literally also had expected SOAS and just walked into a top team with everything around him, yellow start, etc. I do think actually that is the dream start in your career if you're a good player as well, because essentially it sets the standard. Like in your first split of LCS, like, well, we should just be in the final. In fact, we should win. We should win the championship. If you think of some of the people who had to struggle in like the bad teams, it becomes almost a whole thing of like, mate, just to make the finals, like some like 5-year quest. And like my mate Odoamne was playing for like 9 years or something before you even got to like lift a trophy. So it's brutal. If you're in that scenario, when you're in the final, what was it like to just be in your first final and be this close to winning and going to Worlds and stuff in the first year?
After the EU LCS final? I remember that we lost game 3. Now we're down 2-1. And then in game 4, we're down like 10k goal or something. The game was basically lost. And I remember some people in the game were always saying like, GG guys, or something like this. Like they were basically just saying it's over, right? And I was like, no, trust me, it's not over. Just give me this item, and I will carry. And everyone was like, okay. And then I got that item. I remember this back when you could buy like double Phantom Dancers on ADCs.
Okay.
I remember in game 3, Reckless got a pentakill, on Tristana. and we were all like, wow, we're demoralized now. And then in game 4, we first picked it, I think. Oh, we got it. It doesn't matter. And I was carrying the whole game, and then I walked off stage, and I could hear Silver Scrapes blasting in the background, and I was like, I felt truly like, the main character of some sort of movie at this moment.
Anime or something, yeah.
Literally, like that's how I went through. I walked off stage, I felt like a fucking badass, and the emotions I was going through was like, wow, I want to do this my whole life, I knew it at that moment that this was, because when I originally quit school, become a pro player, I thought I would just play for a year and see what happens. And I was like, maybe I'll go back to school, because in Denmark, if you quit school for a year, no problem, come back, start the exact same day you left, same point of your career path, and nothing changes, right? So you can just do that for a year if you want to, and just see how it goes. But after that final, I already knew that I was going to keep playing for a very long time. But, I mean, we lost ultimately. Fucking unfortunate. I didn't play the best final. I had a really good game 4, but besides that, it was whatever. But the experience was amazing, and no one blamed each other, and we were a really good-hearted team, I think, at the end of the day. And I knew that we were going to go to Worlds, and next split we would win. I just knew it at that time. Didn't actually win, but...
When you actually went to Worlds, like one aspect I wanted to ask you was just this side. Like whenever people make that list, like best team of all time, SKT 2015 is one of the number 1, 2, or 3 names on that list, even to this day. So what was it actually like to face them? Were they beatable? Like, could you have beaten them? And I mean, there was that one game you had a little bit of early on, there was a chance or something, right?
Yeah, I remember in the first game, we were actually winning for a while. One thing is we were nerfed by the tournament because Gragas was disabled because of a bug that happened in a FNATIC EDG game. Gragas was one of our only champs in the jungle. It was like Rek'Sai, Elise, Gragas or something. So that being disabled was a nerf to Origen. And we had to play Evelyn, terrible champ. We were actually winning the first game until a certain point. And then I remember after game 1, as we were losing, and in the game, Amazing says, guys, they aren't that good. We can actually win. These are his exact words.
Sure.
They aren't that good. We are gonna win or something like that. This second part, and I'm like, yeah, I actually agree with that. Then I think we get shit stomped game 2, and then as we were standing there, 5 players in a circle with our useless coach Hermit, who was a drunk, and disaster stories about him. We're talking about next game, and they say, guys, they're putting in what was it? They're putting in Faker for game 3 because they were playing EasyHoon in the first 2 games.
Okay.
And they're subbing in Faker for game 3. And that's when you hear the boss music starting.
Right,
and
okay.
EasyHoon goes off stage, starts playing solo queue while we're in the middle of our game 3. Because he knows they're gonna win anyways. So yeah, it didn't feel like back then. I think it feels the same as now, honestly. The West has moments where you're winning, you get kills, you get goal leads, but you're never actually like winning. And at some point you just lose. But back then the game was a lot more macro focused than it is now. Nowadays League is like so heavily focused around fighting dragon, fighting herald, fighting dragon, fighting herald, and then just that over and over again. But back then the time between the dragons was greater. I think it was 6 minutes. And the herald was fucking useless. It was like a buff to top laners that gave like some split push power, but it was like whatever, no one cared about it. So the time between fights was bigger for the most part, and macro actually mattered a lot. Also, it was the time of lane swaps. So like a team's game knowledge and macro in the game was a lot more important. But if a team was better than you, macro-wise, you just couldn't win. Like you could never win a single game. Like you know how like sometimes West steals one game off of a team from the East based on like some random shit? That would never happen back then. Like the West just could not win a single game against SKT this tournament. It was not possible. I think they dropped one game this whole tournament. It was in the finals, 2 Coup Tigers, right?
Yep.
That's how it was. You could not beat a team that was better than you in this year, this meta, this time of the game's like existence. Even though like the lane swap that was made at Worlds to be the meta was the European one that Origen and FNATIC reinvented, or like for Worlds, right? So even though we had a starting advantage that we made the best lane swap meta, it didn't matter. It was just Koreans adapted it, took it, and then they were better than us, and they every possible. So it felt like you could never actually win, and I didn't realize that until after the series was over. That like you had no chance of winning, even if the first game was close. Even if we got first blood in some of the games, it just didn't matter.
People might not actually remember, but in part of one of the infamous Reckless versus Forgiven beefs, you got like some mad stray. You know what I'm talking about here? Where when Freeze and Forgiven, who basically themselves thought of themselves as like this, like, oh, we're the hard done by guys, you know, had to like, struggle and make it through. Yeah, you two were the Nordic Golden Boys, because it's true. You did get like amazing teams. You're on all these top spot. When you had that, like, was that really just a stray, or were you like trash talking them in scrims or something? Did you have some like professional rivalry with them? What did you think of that? Like, do you agree at all? Do you think, were they being unfair with how they characterized it?
I mean, in some ways, I agree. I got lucky. I got into the LCS scene at the best time before things got so professional that you had to go through Academy or ERLs nowadays. So that was lucky in that sense. But I worked hard for what I had, and no one gets opportunities from two of the best teams in the EU at the same time by being lucky. I think Forgiven is right in some sense that he got, you know, he won a tryout from SK Gaming that I probably would have taken if I could, and then I got a better opportunity afterwards by not taking it, you know, by not winning the tryout. That makes sense. But I think there was no doubt about it that him and Reckless and I were the two best ADCs in the EU. I feel that's something that to this day, Forgiven had a lot of problems, I think, mentally, with always blaming others or his teammates or everyone else around him for everything that happened to him. He was a very skilled player, and playing against him in like the spring of 15, he was by far the best ADC in that specific split, in my opinion. He also got MVP, which he deserved. But I don't want to talk shit about the guy because we actually talked on good terms today. But he had a lot of problems with personality, like non-game related things, yes. I guess. I still remember him screaming after 16 finals when he lost to FNATIC. That was the infamous like game 5. FNATIC win one team fight, they end down mid. That was the long death timers patch, and they just ended down mid. And I remember Forgiven typing like something like AD gaps tongue face in all chat, or like better ADC wins smiley face. And I remember him coming off stage, and they were like in this very wide player area where I could just hear him screaming at probably the coach back then, and it was just so fucking glorious. We were sitting there like laughing our asses off. That was the day before finals, right? That we were playing SG2. I think that Forgiven was always a trash talker, like in scrims, in solo queue. Back then we had dynamic queue, where it was like kind of like playing scrims with different players. I would play with like some of the G2 players, some of the FNATIC players, just random people against him, and he would always talk shit. Like, you get one gang, he's like, I can't fucking 2v2, ha 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 ha, and like in scrim, solo queue, always. He was very good at firing you up. When you play against Forgiven, you really cared about winning. So he pushed me in some ways to be better, but I do think that ultimately both him and Freeze always took every opportunity they could to excuse themselves from performances, and I don't know. I didn't care much about it back then. I just kind of did my own thing, and I knew that I was gonna make it to the biggest stage. I always knew it. Forgiven was talking shit about me before I even went pro. I remember meeting him in solo queue, and I didn't realize he was actually someone back then. And he would always just be like, in every single solo game he played against anyone, whether it was me or a pro player or some randoms, he would just talk shit. If you got ganks, if you lost 2v2, if anything happened, he would just all chat something really cringe, annoying, like can't 2v2, ha ha ha, you guys are so fucking bad, and like this kind of stuff. And he was very like, people hated Forgiven in both solo queue and in pro play. Many people still do. So he was an interesting person to play with because he really pushed the people around him in some sort of way.
Was he actually overrated as a player though? Like obviously you admit he had skill set and he was skilled. Was he? Yeah. Was there like weaknesses to his game though?
Some, yes. Forgiven was very, very good on Graves, Lucian, back then at lane champ. Nowadays, maybe not. But he was very good on Graves, the old one, Lucian, Caitlyn, all kinds of like lane champions. And he was really, really good at winning lane. But he didn't have a good mindset for playing losing matchups. That's why I always drew the parallel that Reckless was very good at playing the skilling and lose matchup, because he would lose gracefully and lose less than other people would. While Forgiven would be winning harder than most people would in the win matchup. That's why it was a funny like difference between them as both people and
even that's like some anime shit, isn't it? It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. But Forgiven was very, very skilled, and mechanically he was way better than everyone else at the time in Spring Split. And Sports Summer, I think it got more even between him, and Reckless. But yeah, he was really skilled, and I don't think that his MVP was undeserved at all. I think it was very, very deserved, and I think in a different universe, he could have easily been on a better team and they could have won LEC. I think that he's probably one of the most skilled players that never won the LEC, but he had other flaws. And ultimately, League isn't just about, your own skill. It's a 5-5 team game after all. Yeah, I think I learned a lot from him about how he was really good at winning lane because I don't know if he was doing it on purpose, but he had really good wave control back in a time where that wasn't something that people thought about that much. And he was very, very good at hitting you on the tower. He had flawless mechanics, and he would hit you between tower shots. So the tower shot is like flying out, he hits you, walks back. And just back then, like things like orb walking or like moving between attacks was really like not that. Like I'm watching at Worlds right now, I'm 15, and people weren't that good at this. A lot of people are just pressing S with no attacks, and like mechanics are all just bad. But he was very flawless, and he had a really good reaction time. I remember so many clips of him playing certain situations, and I was like, wow, this guy's actually really good. But yeah, I think that
if you made that spectrum there, then between Reckless and him at the time, it's obviously really old school. People develop since then. Where were you on that spectrum? What type of an ADC were you?
I thought that I didn't want to be someone that was hindered to only playing a certain style of play. I wanted to play everything, and I think I did. I think that my first year, I don't remember like much about the champion specifics. Back then, I just played whatever was good and just did whatever I had to win. But I think that I was worse than Reckless and Forgiven in spring. Obviously, I was playing Challenge Series, so. But then towards summer, I felt like I was getting better and better over time. I think Reckless was better than me in summer. I actually don't remember Forgiven much. He was playing in Gambit, I guess, at this time.
Yes.
And I didn't think he was that insane in summer playing against him. I thought he was just good, like the top 3 ADC. But yeah, I wasn't like super impressed with him in the LCS. I think that's the split he got banned, right? Or was that summer?
Yes, it was. It was in summer.
Yeah, summer 15. Yeah, he got banned for like 2 games for being. It doesn't matter. And then they didn't make playoffs because of that ban. His team lost 2 games or something, and they didn't make playoffs. And I was like, I swore at that time that I would never be like that, where like I lose opportunities being toxic. Because solo queue in EU in 15 was really toxic. 14 was even worse. Like almost every pro player in the entire server had like 5,000 plus games of chat restrictions because everyone was just fucking toxic. Not necessarily like slurs or like bad words, but just so much like raging and stuff in chat. And everyone had chat bans. I remember Mithy had it. I had it. Amazing had it. Soas had it. Perkz didn't, of course. But it was a big thing back then. And I swore like I would never become like that. So it's interesting to see later. I got benched and stuff in 21 and stuff. But like to get banned, I always thought Mithy was fucking stupid too. And Nuke Duck to like lose your career over being toxic in a video game. These days, I am a bit toxic in solo queue in the sometimes passive-aggressive way or sometimes like whiny way, but I would never get banned like that for typing bad words. That's just fucking stupid, I thought.
Sure.
But yeah, Forgiven was good in 15, I think. In 16, I felt like he was declining. He wasn't like that dominant anymore. It didn't feel like you're playing against him, Like in 15, if you had like a guy playing with no name tag, I would know it was him within 1 minute of playing against. He was very distinct in the way he was playing. The champs, the runes. I remember he innovated the no MR, what's it called? The blue runes, glyphs, I think. And I remember I copied him and stuff, and people started copying him at Worlds and stuff too. So he was interesting.
Right, as you alluded,
ahead of his time.
You alluded to it earlier, but obviously, like, even though actually the first split in season 6 of Origin, the results were good. Already the team had issues, and more importantly, the org angle. Like, people know that isn't the Origin that exists now that Astralis bought. Like, that team did just go off the boil. The problem is this, right? At the time, I understand why no one could say this, because it's mad awkward that, like, literally your teammate, the best teammate and friend, it's his mom, like, runs the fucking org. It's really awkward. Like, no one wants to flame anyone. But in that scenario, one thing I always thought was weird was that whole thing where, like, they fucking did catch feelings when you and Mithy left. I get it that you left to the rival. I get all that jazz. But, like, sure, I mean, the joke is they themselves left right after that. Like, everyone was going to have to eventually leave this org. It wasn't professional enough, right? Essentially, you guys being really good at the game was what was carrying the org.
Oh, yeah. There's this common saying in League esports that when you're winning, you can go through anything. Like, nothing matters if you're winning. But the moment you start losing and you've been ignoring problems, it all comes crashing down. So when we started losing, it got worse and worse. But like in 15, for example, I ignored the problems. Like we had so much shit going on. Like we shared rooms that were fucking small, and we didn't have a manager, we didn't have a cook, we didn't have a coach, nothing. The whole thing was just a fiesta. Like our coach quit before we made Worlds. I remember the duck. Our management was disastrous, and the whole org was in shambles. So, but didn't matter. We were winning. We were second place the whole split. We're going to the finals, all this stuff. Fuck yeah. So things are good. But then when things started losing in 16 spring, when we had Perkz, retiring essentially to become the CEO of the company, he started being out on business, and we would have like implosions in scrims, people almost getting into physical fights with each other in scrims, us having to cancel scrims, and we couldn't really resolve any issues without Perkz being there. Sometimes we just have to cancel scrims because of personal like problems with each other, and then nothing would happen until Perkz came home and like talked to everyone. We had a lot of those meetings where you sit down in a circle and like amazing talk about how amazing TSM, no pun, how amazing TSM were, and how like
people don't know that he's not even trolling when he does that. He actually believes that shit. He really does. He does for real.
Like amazing thought that TSM was insanely good in terms of like the org, and it was compared to Origen, like from housing to management to how good things were, food, all this kind of stuff. And Origen was a fucking mess, and he was borderline crying sometimes about it, how terrible our life actually was in this team. I didn't realize it. I had a bed and I had a computer upstairs. I was good, but I saw what he meant and how shit it was at times. And our scrims were just a mess, bro. Like if we lose, blame each other, no talk about it. Just we had so many problems like that, and I could feel it was going downhill because now we're losing. And Perkz was a really important part of our team morale, even if he was a much worse player than Power Evil. He just was more important. That's why he played in the spring finals against G2. He played a game when we're down 0-2, I think, because we just needed him to play. We just couldn't without him. And yeah, his mother being the CEO essentially was just not it. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's like whatever, but I knew it was sinking ship. And the thing I feel most bad about is that I was kind of like, I was low-key begging Amazing and Mithy in 15 after Worlds to stay in Origen because they had offers from TSM, both of them, to go there. Of course, Amazing already had been in TSM before that in 14, and he really wanted to go there, and it was Mithy's dream to play in TSM. It always has been. So he wanted to go to TSM ever since he played against them at Worlds and heard the TSM chants. It was like, back then, TSM was really like a big team everywhere.
Oh, for real.
EU and even these, they were huge.
If you're a casual fan, it'd be the equivalent of going from like a normal team to like Real Madrid or something where they've got like crazy huge atmosphere. Oh, of course,
It really was crazy, like how big they were back then everywhere. So I felt bad about asking them to stay, but I thought that after we went to World Semis in our first year, our finals went to 5 games, and it was the best finals of EU LCS ever at the time. Still is one of the best to this day. So I thought there's no limits to how far we can go as a team. So I asked them to stay, and they believed me. So then I felt really shit about, wanting to leave in the middle of the year in 16, but Origen was just a fucking mess. And when we were leaving, it got really like bad between us and Origen's management, aka Perkz's mother, and we were not on good terms, Mithy and I, with the rest of Origen for a very long time until like 18 or 19 Rift Rivals when EU came to NA. Then I talked to Perkz again, and we were actually on good terms, but it took a long time, and I feel bad about it to this day that I asked Amazing to stay. He did, and then that happened. So that's something I regret, but at the same time, Origen was a ship that was going down, and it's just what it is.
Now, one thing I actually talked to him in his reflections about this, but there's a story a lot of people don't know, which is actually Perkz could have been the mid laner to replace Xpeke instead of Power of Evil. So, there's a world where you would have played together anyway. Like, who was the person who gave him the hookup? Like, did you know him or something? Like, what was this story? Because that would have been an interesting lineup just off the bat, mate.
I remember back in Challenge Series, at this time, you were allowed to play our tournaments while you were playing Challenge Series or LCS.
Yes.
I think LCS couldn't, but Challengers could.
You go to lands, everything, yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking glorious, bro. So we were playing a tournament called Gamers Assembly in
It's in
Paris,
France, right?
in France. Yeah, I don't think it was in Paris, but we played this tournament, and G2 was there, the Perkz team, and they were terrible. Don't get me wrong, they were trash, absolutely. But Perkz came up to us one time, and he was acting like he knew us. He was always just coming up to us like little smug, smile on his face, like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And acting like our best friend. I was like, "Who the fuck are you?" But that's my first meeting with him.
Dude, people think that's just because he won all the championships. They don't know. I've even told this story. He flamed me on Twitter before he was even in LCS. Like he's just cocky as a person, right? He just came on the womb like that. Seems like.
And he's very, very open with people. He's very straight up and forward, and very nice to be around as a person. Even back then, when he was really young, he was just good at making friends with everyone. I remember like in 15, before he was a pro player, he was friends with everyone. He came to our room in London at World's Quarters, and he was just cool with a lot of people that were in the scene. Because he was good at making friends. Powerful character static, whatever you call it, in the hindsight, to have powerful character trait.
Yes, as this story shows.
Which we know from nowadays. But yeah, that's my first meeting with him. And then I knew that we wanted him after 15 to join the team. At this point, G2 had already qualified to the LCS, I believe, through the Challenge Series. They actually won their series, I think. Like they had to play an actual best of 5, I think, to go to LCS against SK, I think. Maybe I'm misremembering.
It's either that or Giants, one of the two, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, some shit team, right? And they made it to LCS, and we wanted Perkz, but Ocelot was, even back then, he was not selling his best players, letting them go to other teams. Okay. So it's funny how that's similar to the whole thing that happened later on with Perkz. It's kind of funny how history repeats itself, but yeah, we wanted Perkz because I think if we had Perkz, I can't even imagine how things would have turned out if we had Perkz in Origen in 16. Power Evil was a good player, and he showed that during the 2015 Gauntlet that he was better than Peke, but he was selfish. He could only play his own champs. Still to this day, is the same player.
Yeah.
He wouldn't adapt to the meta. He wouldn't play things that weren't his champions. But most importantly, he didn't fit into the team culture or atmosphere at all, which I don't blame him for. It was very acquired taste, to say the least. And him and Amazing didn't bond at all in a time where duo queuing and having synergy as like humans was way more important than you would think. So it just didn't work at all. They didn't talk to each other barely at all. It was just fucking bad. Power Evil was a good player, but they didn't fit in our team at all. And it was clear to me that this team wasn't going to do much. So I asked Mithy about it, and we agreed. And from the play to the org to the mess we were in, we decided it was best to just get out there as fast as possible. And I regret how long it took to get out and how we didn't tell Amazing and SOAS about it before it was too late for them. But yeah.
By the way, when you went with Mithy, and obviously then you stayed together for a bunch of years and have this iconic bot lane, right? Do people because listen, I'm one of the people who does the narratives, etc. And obviously we all like to tap into like the archetypes and the movie script narrative and the anime. Have people overblown the idea that you were like fucking Luke Skywalker and Mithy was like Yoda, like just teaching you all the shit? What was it, more of an even relationship? What was it like?
I mean, I think in the first year, Mithy was a big part of my growth. He pushed me a lot during the Challenge Series days. I remember we had one argument where he was saying like, "Why didn't you fucking talk?" And I'm like, "What the fuck should I say?" And we had this big argument about like how I have to step up and be more than just a bot, a turret right-clicking people to death, and have to communicate. And I think he pushed me in ways that I needed to become the best version of myself. And thanks to him, I think I reached, my peak in the first year, my pro play career because of him mostly. So yeah, I think in the first year he helped me a lot, and after the finals of LEC in the 15th summer finals, I was already my own person, kind of. You know what I mean? I had reached the place I wanted to be at thanks to him faster than I would have with anyone else, and now we were actually a real duo, together. So yeah, I think in the first year it helped me a lot. But after that, we were just a duo in 16, 17, just doing what I thought was best. And at that point, we were actually a real partnership. But in the first year, it was just him guiding me mostly. Him and Peke, I think, helped me the most as people. So as too, with different things. But yeah.
When you had this G2 lineup and you won the first championship, like one, is there like a special significance to winning a championship like that? And then two, the other part is this was a team where even though obviously everyone was thinking you just complaining when at Worlds you guys lost in the BO once, and you would say that line like we're like a BO5 team, right? Normally when people say that, guys, that is corp. Like they're full of shit. What they really mean is like, you know, you just won't get to see that we're not that good.
Yeah.
This team does look like that, dude. Like actually it looked like it just fucking bing chilling in the split. But then when you get to the playoffs, this split was fucking amazing. You were unbeatable in this playoff, right?
And which one?
In this playoffs, the summer season 6, there's no way your team was going to lose those playoffs.
Oh no, there was no way we could lose. Like we all knew we were gonna win. I think we played against Splice actually, which is wow. In hindsight, those teams were so shit that we played.
No, you played FNATIC and then OG. Oh no, wait, that's spring. Sorry, you are right. Splice in the final. Yes, Splice in the final. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So we played Splice in the finals and we won. And I thought the first thing I thought when we lifted the trophy was about time. And then the second thing I thought was, this is the first of many. I already knew it back then that this was the.
Okay.
It felt so good after losing summer finals in season 5 and spring in season 6 to finally win this one. It felt like kind of like a burden off my shoulders that I had to win the LEC at some point, and this was it. And then I knew that this is where we will start stacking trophies and build our legacy, because I just thought that I was on top of the world. I thought no one could beat us. I felt so untouchable as an individual in my own role, but also as a team. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. I just felt like we were so insane these times. No one could beat us, truly. It was the era of where the better team always won in playoffs. You know, there was no, like, you couldn't get chased, you couldn't get anything one game. So,
when you say that, though, that's actually quite a unique mindset. I don't know if other people in the team shared it, but actually what you're talking about is probably my biggest frustration with pro players ever, mate. It's the amount of them where when they win a championship, oh, they're loving it. And then they're sort of like, right, cool, I've done that, so I can just chill now. And you're like, what? And dude, they'll just play years and years and they'll try and live. In English, you say you're dying out on that story for bloody years about the one time you want. Actually, it's quite rare to have the mindset you're talking about where you're like, right, I've done it once. Now I've got to get all of them. I've got to win like 5. So I've got to go for the record, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I know what I'm giving up to being a pro player. Family, friends, and a normal life, so to speak. It's very desirable, honestly, by me to this day even. So I knew I had to make it count. I'm a big family guy, and being away from family sucks. Being with my friends at home sucks. So I always said to myself that I have to make this count. I have to make something out of it. And I still think that way to this day, that I have to make something out of these years. I'm a pro player, because back then, I didn't think I was going to be a pro for as long as I am now, as long as I have been now. But I always wanted to make the most of it, and I always wanted to win. Every single win we won, I just got more hungry to win. I think it was weird because I started out my career with a really big, like really high point, you know, world semis. And then when I finally won the LEC, it would make sense if I got like the crown effect. When he won worlds, he just couldn't do it anymore. He just started retiring slowly, right? But I didn't feel that way at all. I wanted to go back to Worlds and do him better every single year. And winning the LCS was part of going to Worlds. You know, I had to win to get a first seed, to go to Worlds, do well there. So I never gave up on that. And then at Worlds in 16, when we flopped, it was just, okay, go again. Time to win LCS and go to MSI and LCS and go to Worlds to try again, you know, to win Worlds. Back then, I really had the mindset that we could actually win Worlds. I truly believed in 17 that we could win Worlds as a team. Maybe it's delusional in hindsight, but
no, it's all right. We'll come to that. It's all good.
It was a real dream for me to win Worlds at this point of the time. It still is a dream, of course, but back then I really, really thought we could win. So we lost 16 Worlds. Okay, fuck it. Next year we'll go back to Worlds. So I got to win LCS to go there.
Let me ask you about this season 6 Worlds, though, because one, I will say, as an aside, right, one just funny detail if you think about it is, part of actually losing, which meant that ANX team from LCL went to the playoffs, you actually inadvertently also fucked Forgiven on his best ever run ever, because when they made that semis, everyone just goes like, yeah, you can play ANX, so who gives a shit? So inadvertently, you wrecked him anyway. And then, even though, as if you'd have gone there and lost, he would have actually had a legit win. And then secondly, the other thing is, right, I want to know which is true on this, because everyone, because of MSI, where you weren't there to be fair, everyone just went, all those American fans went in on Perkz, mate. The second he blew this Worlds, they were just like, all those those fucking memes. You remember them all, like all the fucking nursery rhymes and shit. Like everyone was loving it, right? But one thing I always wondered was this, mate, is when I look in that group and I look at some of those teams, like they're not really like dominant bot lanes in that group. Like how did the West of the West do at that one? Did you guys have some flops as well? Did you do badly in the group stage?
In 16 Worlds?
Yes.
Yeah, this Worlds is one that I really hate because of the CLG games. I remember in the past when I was having bad games in NA in like 8-19, people would revisit history and say that we weren't as good as people think, and we lost to fucking CLG Ballin. We didn't lose, bro. Go watch the games. Like we played like fucking Jin Brown against Nami Caitlyn, and we were even CS and stuff like this. And people just a common thing in League esports is that the fans on like Twitter and Reddit and stuff, they rewrite history whenever a player does badly. A player who was once heralded as the best or something, blah blah, right? And that's something I really fucking hate.
It's the idea that you were always a fraud and you've just been exposed now, right?
Sort of, yeah. And I really hate the way people were doing it with us about the CLG series, because we didn't lose CLG ball in either game, in lane at least. But in history, all people think we do whenever whenever I lost like in 18-19 to some NA players in LCS, right? When I was in TSM, whatever, right? That I hate. But that Worlds, I don't know. Things just didn't click for us. I'm not sure what actually happened, but we weren't a team in this tournament. We didn't have enough time, I guess. We didn't play the teams. We prided ourselves over the team. We picked for ourselves in draft, and we didn't care enough about the team game compared to the individual game. And we just collapsed. I think NX was terrible. CLG was terrible. I remember we were like fucking screaming alongside when we had the group draw and we saw CLG.
Sure.
Because back then, your group could have been LPL, LCK.
Yep, could have been even worse, yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, the fact you didn't have LPL and, well, back then it was called something else, like LCK, I mean, Origen maybe? Was it? I don't know what it was called, but whatever.
If it was LCK, yeah.
Was it LCK? Yeah. We could have been LCK, LPL, and we got a wildcard team, already fucking insane. And we got NA instead of getting, what's it called? LPL. So we were like, holy fuck, this is insane, right? And then we lost. This karma hit us hard. We won one game, I think, against Albus Nox. But yeah, that year we were just not a team. That year I realized that team game is really more important than the individual game.
How did, by the way, Perkz actually take that? Because like I say, he'd had like 2 failures in a row. And even though now everyone thinks of him as this great winner, you know, everything bounces off him, he's invulnerable. Dude, wasn't he like crying or almost crying at that point in time? So crazy that, right?
It was a really tough year for him because at MSI was the whole G2-8, the whole pool party G2 where, you know, the poaching allegations came out about that was the year of the pool meme, if you remember. And
the hot tub.
G2 was getting clowned really fucking hard for MSI performance, which is deserved. And people hated G2 for that. Then they hated. So the history is in 15, EU goes to World Semis, both teams, FNATIC and Origen. Then that team goes kaput in the middle of this 16 year to G2 goes 2-8 at MSI. Then people hate G2 for that. Then people hate me and Mithy for leaving Origen. Right. Then those things combine to one team.
Them, yeah.
then goes to Worlds after winning as first seed, and then goes 1-5 against NA and Albus Nox, who was Russian, I think, yeah. So obviously people like fucking hate us, right? There was the whole like the Spanish people calling us Judas and shit, and then there was the whole people that hate G2, and people also hate Ocelot back then.
Of course.
So a massive like clash of hating this team for everything that you can. I mean, it was deserved. Even in 17, we made this video about like how we were the bad boys of LCS and like we were like with guns and money, like fuck you all, you know, this kind of thing.
Did you actually buy into that though? Like, did you vibe with it? Could you handle it? Because no one really likes being trash talked. Everyone thinks I do that, but like no one really likes everyone telling you to kill yourself.
It was tough, yeah. Like being told to kill yourself in DMs on Twitter was when I realized, wow, these people are actually fucking insane. And then that's the year I turned off my DMs on Twitter because I was like, fuck this. I CBA being told to get hit by a bus and shit. So I was like, oh, fuck this. I'll just mute my Discord, I mean, my Twitter DMs. But yeah, at Worlds, it was tough mentally for a lot of us. Perkz especially, his first Worlds, right? His first year, even though he won 2 trophies in the LEC. Once you win the LEC, Worlds is more important to you. It always will be, I think, for all players that have ambitions. And he has ambition. He had ambitions. Still has, I think. So seeing him cry was tough. And I remember like telling him like we'll stick together for next year, and then we'll go back to Worlds and we'll do better. Spoiler, we didn't, but
here's the thing: if this was like the
documentary,
I know all the narratives everyone tells in the interviews, right? But I always want to know how many of them are true, like how many of them are sexed up, or how many's just someone remembering you tell it. And also, you meet up with each other, you tell each other the stories, they like bounce back and forwards, they get crystallized. It's like that's like everyone agrees to it, right? The story goes like this in the Mithy narrative: is that what happened was, just like with the lane swaps, how they like revolutionized the game. In season 7, the story goes, it was that IEM where you go and you lose to Flash Wolves, who at the time it's like they're not supposed to be the best. And the story goes, this is supposed to be where Mithy like figured out like, holy shit, wait, what they're doing in Korea, like the way they like run the map and that is like this. And then that was like what leveled G2 up, and you could go to the MSI files. Is this accurate? Do you remember it this way?
Yeah, I remember. I remember 17 was a tough year because of the amount of tournaments we played. Like from IEM traveling to Poland in a fucking bus in the middle of the LCS spring split. But yeah, I remember when we played against Flash Wolves that we got hard reality checked in the finals. We lost to them. They were playing a whole different game than we were, team game wise. It was similar to the feeling I had playing against SKT in 15 finals, I mean 7 finals of Worlds, where like we just couldn't win. Didn't matter if we were better than them mechanically or individually, we just couldn't win. And I remember after the game, Mithy talked to their manager, who talked to Sword. Like they were having like a one-on-one talk through a translator. And I remember it because a couple of days ago, let's see if I can find it. I saw a picture of Eminence talking to Jovi outside the at the press room, and then Sharix, who was our coach back then, took a picture of Mithy talking to them. I can send it to you right now.
Does it look like the same picture, basically?
More or less, yeah.
Right.
Wait, let me see if I can send it. Maybe you can show it. I don't know. And it reminds me of that he was always trying to figure out, because I remember his first thing he said was, like, they aren't playing the same game as us. We're playing a whole different team game. And that was like his job back then. His support job was to like, the macro was his department. And he talked to Sword through their manager, I think it was. And I was so like, I admired that kind of mindset to always improve. But yeah, the Koreans and the teams that could beat the Koreans, like Flash Wolves, they were Korean kills for a reason. Played a different game than we did. And that's why after IEM, I knew that EU LCS was free because of this tournament.
No one else knew this shit, right?
Yes, the game they were playing was not the game we played in the EU LCS. So we came back to EU, even though we had a lot of problems with burnout and some people borderline. It was tough. We'll get to it later. I remember that we just couldn't lose. Once we got our like personal real life shit solved, it was free. And it was.
By the way, along those lines, one thing I wanted to ask about Mithy is, right, even though stuff like that's amazing, by the way, whenever you have a teammate who can just come along like, yeah, by the way, like an anime, I've just cracked like the secret code to how you play, and then they don't know, like, you know, the fucking Kikaku plan or whatever. The problem is, as much as that's brilliant, the other thing about Mithy's personality people might not know is, it is, even though he makes it funny in interviews and on Twitter, he can also be a very negative person. Like, he can also be the guy like whipping like, shit, you know, we're going to lose, like, this, we don't even deserve to win the game, we shouldn't even play. He can also go that way too. So how you seem a bit more even keeled?
I mean, Mithy in 15 was very unfiltered. Very, very unfiltered. Him and Amazing would get into fistfights every day for 20 minutes between games, arguing, shouting at each other. I'll be honest, back then, you know, people use different words that today are like borderline alright to use. Back then, they were just normal words. I remember like joining C9 and we had this sponsor, Kaiser Permanente. They went through our old tweets and they were like, you gotta remove this. And I was like, whoa. I tweeted this at someone in 2015 or 14. I was like, whoa, today I'll be cancelled for this, you know? It wasn't like the N-word or stuff like this, but it was like bad words. Sure. And I'm like, shit, you know? That's how it was back then. But I think Mithy was just like, he didn't have a filter. He would just say what he meant to someone when he meant it, no matter if it was the worst time ever, because people are different, right? If Mithy comes out to Soaz after a bad game and tells him, you fucked up this part of the game, after Soaz griefed the whole game, he'll be really triggered, Soaz that is. But people like Amazing would just be open to just have a fist fight right there, while Soaz would just be fucking mad about it. So he didn't understand that people were different. He would just tell them when he wanted to tell them, and tell them exactly how he thought it in his head. No filter, no thought about how that person might take it. He would just say it, and that led to a lot of like altercations, and Mithy and Soaz almost had a fist fight in Origen one time. I remember it was glorious. Soaz punched a table, left a hole in it, like a little small IKEA table.
Okay.
Glorious days. We canceled scrims and we didn't see each other. They didn't see each other until like next day at 3 p.m. when the next scrim started, and they were like, "All right, let's go. Time to scrim." It was just how it was.
Did Zven and Mithy ever have come close to a fight or have any screaming matches?
No. We've had arguments, bad ones too, but never like that kind of stuff. But I think back then I was a lot more reserved and cool. I had less emotion in it back then. I could just take it and just respond calmly. Nowadays, if someone acts like a shit to me, I'll do the same to them. I don't know why, but
did any of that rub off from them? I mean, that was like you grew up in that environment, sort of, right?
For sure. Like I really like when you're in an environment with people that are better than you at a time, and people that are accomplished more than you have in their careers. They've been to Worlds, they've been to finals, they've won LCS. You can't just unconsciously or subconsciously rather copy their behavior as the ideal behavior, because that behavior led them to winning LCS or going to Worlds, right? So it's kind of like your parents in a way, where you just copy whatever they do because they're your parents. So yeah, in some ways, but I always, in my career, I played with a lot of really good people, players and people, and I've always tried to take the best parts of people and apply it to my own game, and also the worst parts, and try to avoid that, because every player, Thoas, Expeke, Mithy Amazing, to Perkz, the Korean players in G2, to TSM, to C9, all players have good qualities and bad qualities, and it's interesting to think about how some people are similar and some people are very different. And I learned about that over the course of the years, that you gotta think how you speak to some people, but to others you don't. This was Weldon talked to me about this in TSM, about how like some people are red and shit and they can just take it however you say it. Some people don't want to be criticized after they just had a bad performance in a game because it makes them feel bad or defensive. And I didn't care about this back then in the EU. No one gave a fuck about this back then. It was just like, after the game, hey bro, you fucked this up. Why? And it made a lot of confrontation happens. But at the end of the day, even if Mithy and Soaz got into a fist fight almost, next day, 3 p.m., scrim start, it's all in the past, because everyone knew we were all here to win. It was more important to win, so no one put themselves before the team in that sense. It was just pure passion for the game, and everyone just wanted to win. And that's why I was like, okay, cool, we can just fucking scrim, no problem. That's something I liked a lot about the old school days of EU LCS. People were really just raw, in the sense that they could just do that, have a massive altercation together, don't say anything to each other, next day, show up and scrim, no problem, move on. Okay, let's go.
You talked about how in those past years, essentially, if you're even like slightly worse than the Korean team, you're just always going to lose. I mean, it even applied in the LCS. But after this period where you leveled up after the IEM and then you went to this MSI, dude, this must be where you really also thought like, hey, dude, we could just win these things, because you beat the LPL team, WE, and then in the final, even though you lost to T1, like, dude, that was actually, you were in all those games. Like, that was like a pretty good series, I remember.
Yeah, I was owning that series. But yeah, that year, so it was a tough year mentally, because we had bad Worlds, then we go to Spring Split. There was like a week break for IEM, like I guess 14 days between matches in LEC. And then we had to go in a bus ride to Poland, which took basically a whole day to go there in a fucking bus. Fucking ESL, man. Good old days. We go there, we lose in the finals, blows. After this, we have a lot of problems as a team internally, because some people feeling burned out. Namely, Trick was really burned out at the time, and he didn't want to play at all. And we had a really like tough 2-3 weeks where, honestly, it felt like if one bad thing happened at that time, we would just have disbanded as a team in the middle of the whole year. It was complete disaster. Trick didn't talk to anyone for a while, and it was tough. He was feeling homesick, and he was feeling bad, and Carlos came over, and I don't know what he did, but he made him stay. But yeah, it was It was tough. I remember seeing him and I felt bad for him, but he's having a tough time. But he pulled together somehow, and we won the spring split. Went to MSI, and it was clear to everyone that this was like a really important turn for us to win, because G28 into the 1-5 Worlds against ANX and CLG.
Oh, see, right, yeah.
This was like a really important redemption story for us, and I remember we didn't have any problems, because at the tournament the fans were fucking nice to us. The Brazilian fans were amazing. I know you have your own problems with them,
right.
but to us they were nice. And I remember playing a server. They were all like, "Hey guys, welcome to Brazil," and we were just hanging out. And the fans in the studios were amazing to us, and the hotel they were outside. So I felt like here there wasn't any of that, hatred for us that there was back in the day in the West. So I was like, okay, cool. And we started scrimming, and I remember in one of our scrims, Perkz solo killed Faker, one of our very first games of scrims, and we were like, "What? You're the best, man!" And it was good times. And then we went to fucking finals after a very lucky group stage. We went 4-6, I think, that group stage, and we auto qualified on some shitty tiebreaker rule. Fuck. And our games were so sketchy too. Like our game against TSM, I think it was, were like a 50-minute game playing fucking Caitlyn Iron or Caitlyn Nunu or something like this, and just fuck, man. I remember that game like it was yesterday. TSM was so bad. They were so far ahead, and they were griefing so hard. Fucking Hanser. Oh man, those fucking games. Good times. But yeah, I went to finals, and I remember in the finals we actually won a game, and I was thinking the same thing that I thought in 15. These guys aren't that good. We can actually win. Then we got stomped. I don't remember what happened in the rest of the games. Game 4 and Game 5. Let me see. SKT versus G2 MSI finals. Oh, there's more than one of those, isn't there? Yeah, there's more than one of those. But man, what a throwback this is. Cockmo Brown. I mean, even Game 3 and Game 4 looked like they were close. We were ahead in some of the games, but I don't know. They were just different. The games felt the same from what I remember. Like, once you get ahead, you aren't winning until you kill Nexus. You always felt like you could lose at any point of the game. And that's how we felt when we were in EU. I remember the same feeling, just opposite. That when we were in EU, fell behind, not one person like felt the pressure, We always say, it's fine, we can still win. Yeah, we can still win. We all knew we were going to win, even if we fell behind in every game. I remember that summer, that was the best of 2 format, right? Where there was ties if you went 1-1. And we didn't lose a single series that whole year. We lost games, sure, but we never actually lost a series. We almost never lost the second game either. And that's because we were just strong mentally back then. We knew, because of all the experience we have in these tournaments, that the bear team will never lose a series. And we didn't. And we didn't lose series. We were like undefeated. We had ties, sure, but never lost a series. And that's just how it was. Because back then, the bear team just didn't lose. It didn't happen in best of series. Maybe in best of ones, but in best of series, never.
Do you think that was actually also part of this G2 dynasty? Because I can also say as well, I think an underrated part from casual fans is they think once you start winning, it's like you just never lose. It's like, no, you still have to earn it each day and adapt to the meta. But one thing that does carry over if like this, you don't ever get cracked by the opponent or an underdog, is you can have the psychological dominance though. Like they can be playing against you, like you say, and feel like you say, until we hit the Nexus, they're going to find a way to win. Like they'll come back, especially when you've done it to them a million times. Was that a thing?
Yeah, the pressure people feel today. I remember watching Mad Lions play against T1 in this MSI right now, or 2 weeks ago, and you will see them overuse spells, cooldowns. They will play a situation very safe, and they don't have to. They will take less risk than they normally do as a team. It's the Korean pressure for sure. The pressure of playing against the Titans, the best teams in the world. T1 was considered the best team in the world before this tournament, together with JRG, despite losing the LCK finals. Yeah. And you can tell the pressure that people are overusing their ult when they don't have to, playing it safe, always flashing if you don't actually have to, whereas in LCS or LEC, they would never do that. So it's real, yeah. That kind of pressure is what people felt playing against us back in the day. I could tell they were playing worse against us, they were making mistakes. They were playing just flat out worse in every way possible because we are the kings or whatever. We're the best team in the LEC, and we always win. So I felt like it got easier in a way over time. But I also think the biggest factor to the dynasty building thing is that back then, only one team went to MSI. So if you won Spring Split, you go to MSI, you play scrims against T1 or World Elite or even NA teams, Flash Wolves. You get better practice than everyone else for a whole month while everyone else just jerks off at home. So I felt like, someone once said that Spring Split doesn't matter. I thought that was a fucking joke because the practice opportunity of MSI, even if the tournament isn't that important, was insane. Playing as SKT, World Elite, Flash Wolves, even NA for a whole month while everyone else just playing each other.
And they have to scrim you. There's no one else there. They haven't got the other Koreans, right? Yeah.
And the stage experience itself was huge. So imagine you win Spring Split as the best team. In our case, it was 3-1, I think, against Indian Quest of Love. And you go to, for a whole month, you play against the best teams in the whole world. So when you come back, you're going to be the best, even more the best of whatever. You're going to be even better than you were before. While everyone else stayed the same, or even worse, because they didn't scrim, right? So how can it possibly be not worth it to go to MSI? It was just free. If we go back to MSI, we go back to LCS, and we're just better than we were before. So now it's even more free win. That's why 17th Summer was our most dominant split, because of the MSI experience. Also, now we've been together for a whole year as a team. Something that I think is underrated, taken together. I think that's something that teams don't do much these days. After one bad year, just kaput, right? But 17th Summer was our most dominant year because we stayed together, went to MSI, went to Katowice and IEM, and sure, 2 finals, 2 losses, sucks. But I just knew Summer was so fucking free because of all this practice we had. And it was. I think we went 3-0 in the finals that summer. I didn't die once in the finals, and I was like, yep. At no point of that finals did I think we could lose. Like, not even at a single point did I think it was losable. I knew we were going to win at every point. Even though we're behind, terrible draft, bad lane phase, doesn't matter. Free win. Every game. That summer, we were a team, finally. So, it all just clicked.
One of my strengths and curses is I always remember the narrative, even when it changes because of the result, right? So the thing about Season 7 Summer that no one else remembers, because remember, they're going to look on Wikipedia and go, Misfits, they went to Worlds and wowza, Lollerskits, they almost beat SKT, they must have been good. What they forget is this, Sven. It was supposed to be FNATIC in that final. They were the other fucking team winning all the matches. It was supposed to be FNATIC G2, a classic battle, you against Rec, and they didn't show up because they got wrecked by Misfits. Like, when you saw Misfits made it through, you must have just been like, lol, that's just a championship, right?
I honestly don't remember who we played against in 17 Summer Split playoffs. We played Misfits in the finals, but I think we beat FNATIC on our way there, didn't we?
I think you beat Splice on your way.
You
played that epic series against Splice, the 3-2-1.
Yeah.
They were on the other side of the bracket and they lost to Misfits. That was the one where Broxer got exposed by Max Law, if people remember.
Summer playoffs. G2, Misfits, FNATIC. So yeah, Misfits played third place match. Wait, what? Misfits played FNATIC. Oh, this is when FNATIC lost to HJK.
That's what I'm saying. No.
PHK, yeah.
That's season 6 you're doing. Season 7.
Is it? Season 7? It says G2, Misfits, FNATIC, HJK. Is there a rematch this year?
No, it's season 7. That's season 6. Season 7 Summer was when you played Splice in a 3-2 quarter final. You played HJK 3-0 in the semis. And then in the other one, they got wrecked by Misfits. Though. That was the one where I always thought it was supposed to be the FNATIC G2 final.
Yeah, you're talking about season 7. What split right now?
Summer,
yeah. Yeah, I see right now. Misfits lost. Misfits beats FNATIC in the semifinals. You're right. And we beat HGK. Holy shit, man. Good times. Yeah, I don't know. How did FNATIC lose this?
It's like I say, that was supposedly the one where all the analysts said Broxer was they figured out his flaws or whatever, and how he could play around him. He didn't communicate or some shit like that. I can't remember.
We must have played FNATIC in spring then. So I remember playing as Caps and Broxer and shit.
Ah, right. Okay.
Must have been spring then. Summer, yeah, we playing at HK. I remember now. Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually care who made finals. I knew it was going to be a free-win no matter what. Like that summer playoffs, I just felt untouchable. Did we 3-0 every game?
Except for the Splice one.
3-2 and Splice in quarters. Is that the one with the mithy All-Star, the highlight?
I think so. That was like an epic series, I remember.
That was in quarters. Holy fuck.
That was like the real final almost by the end because of how good it was, yeah.
Player of the series, Mithy, KDA 11.
There you
Champs
go.
played Alistair
Not
Morgana.
bad. KDA 11 for support, not bad.
H2K versus G2, Perkz, player of the series. Spice G2, Mithy, player of the series. What the fuck, man? I'm getting robbed in every series, bro. But yeah, I remember that Mithy Alistair clip. Still to this day, it's a very memorable clip of him.
By the way, along those lines, I should ask you this. Dude, because they remember the end of his career, they think he didn't have hands. This guy used to have really good mechanics back in the day.
Yeah, Mithy was known as one of the more mechanical supports back in like 15, 16 when I played with him. He was the best mechanical supports in the LEC at this time, right? So it became a meme later on, I think, in like 18, 19 when he was playing like Tom and Braum only in TSM days. But I think he was very good mechanically in his day.
Here's the thing, I've set it up like this because here's another one where Leaguepedia will do you no favours if you are a modern fan. It's going to look like, Season 7 Worlds was the same thing again. They just got bounced to the group stage. No, if you know the story and you go watch those games, first of all, you had 2 of the top 4 teams in the whole fucking tournament in your group. That is the one where you got LCK and LPL. And even then, the LPL one, RNG was fucking really good at this tournament. Like, it's one that Faker had to go God mode to beat and get to the final. And obviously, people will know Samsung won the tournament. And I remember in this one, dude, even though Samsung won, you guys were like this close to beating them each time. And even against RNG, it was competitive. Like, this was one where you could have got out of this group. It was just an insane group.
Yeah, my biggest, like, not regret, but like something I hate about that year is that the year we finally got our shit together in 17 Worlds, we drew the world champions, eventual world champions, and the best Chinese team, RNG, who was considered the 3rd or 4th best team at the tournament, and then a wildcard team. So if we had that draw the last year and then still GL was Lux this year, we would have made it so much further. And I would have been interested to see how we would do in a best of 5 against a real team. But, you know, you can only imagine what would happen. It's something I think about not often, but sometimes I go down the memory lane and think what could have happened if we had, you know, had a group that wasn't the world champs and a top 3/4 team in our group. But also maybe we realized that at Worlds, the format back then, even now, it's just trash.
It is.
Right?
I mean, you were the top seed and you got this fucking group. Like, it actually would have been no joke better for you to get the Misfits group and have like TSM and fucking the WE or something. Yeah, it would be ridiculous, yeah.
The Worlds format only finds the rightful champion.
Yes.
And then maybe the finalist sometime. Not even finalist, just the world champion.
A good team or something, yeah.
You know, even years later when FNATIC made Worlds Finals in Season 8, right? Yeah.
Yep.
KT was better than them. Lost in quarters. And we realized that, like, our semifinals run wasn't as impressive as I thought it was originally. Okay. Sure, we actually beat a real team. Flash Wolves wasn't a joke team back then. Yeah. They were actually a good team and people had a lot of respect for them. I did too. But still, sometimes you meet the world champs in quarters. Sometimes you meet them in semis. Sometimes you meet them in groups. And if there's not a team that's good as well, you just lose. That's what felt like shit back then. I mean, still to this day, right? They're changing it for Worlds this year, I think. But yeah, the Worlds format just isn't very good to the West, I suppose, right? It only finds the world champs, nothing else. So yeah, it's tough. That's also what I think, that a lot of time the Western fans think that if you go to Worlds as a Western team and you make out groups, you did well. No flame. If you don't, you're terrible. You're trash. But if you make groups on like a 2-4 or 3-3 tiebreaker kind of thing, you go to quarterfinals, get 3-0'd like Mad Lions C9 in 2021 or Rogue 2022. Like, sure, you make groups. Like Rogue made groups off of like top losing to some, was it GAM or like some team from Vietnam?
It was GAM, yeah.
Yeah. And then they get 3-0'd in quarters by the first real team to play against. Like, how is this different than losing groups? It's not. For me, it's not different, right? That's why I don't care about making out groups. It's like that year, sure, it could be nice to see if you could beat other teams in tournament, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You know, like it's just like if you're gonna get 3-0 by the first real team you play against, then what does it matter if you make out groups or not? that's like such a weird Western fan assessment of your tournament performance, I suppose, where they think making out groups is considered good, while if you don't, you're shit. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me. So, yeah.
Where I come from in England, people will often say, oh yeah, you and whose army? Well, I'll tell you what, I've got my own army backing me up. They're called the Skrilluminati. Thank you to Ahmed Hadju, Joseph Adcock, Matt Pugnaccio-Racula, Theogony, Animosity, Bot Pounder 420, Jensen Gore, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Toucan, and as always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to my boy Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want teasers, find out who's in the upcoming interviews? Do you want to ask me a question in my monthly AMA? Maybe you want to be part of those long discussions where we talk about anything and everything in esports. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and enlist today in the Skrilluminati via the Patreon link in the box below.